Two men on a motorcycle spot a lone woman on a quiet Buenos Aires street. What they don't realize is that she's a plainclothes police officer. The bike stops, one rider jumps off and moves in, trying to trap her at the curb while the driver idles nearby. Reading the threat, the officer steps back, draws her service weapon, and fires several shots off camera while moving away. The robbers panic, scramble back to the bike, and flee. Later, both are detained by police after seeking medical help. The officer and bystanders are unharmed. This was a response by a trained officer. For regular citizens, the safer move in an armed robbery is usually to avoid resisting, create distance if you can, and call police once you're clear. A robber grabs an elderly customer as a shield and thinks the shop is his until the cashier moves. Security cameras show a small store counter. An armed man rushes in, points a gun, and pulls the grandmother in front of him while demanding cash. When the robber turns slightly toward the register, the cashier spots a narrow opening, draws his own handgun, and fires several defensive shots off camera from behind the counter. The robber lets go of the woman and runs for the door, while the cashier keeps distance and holds his aim. The grandmother drops to the floor and appears to avoid injury as staff call police. Situations with weapons are highly unpredictable. The safest option for most people is to avoid resisting, protect bystanders if possible, and contact authorities as soon as it's safe. Two tiny dogs explode into barking, and their owner suddenly realizes someone is already in his driveway. Night vision CCTV in Brazil shows a quiet covered parking spot and a parked SUV. The dogs won't stop barking, so the homeowner steps to the doorway to check. A figure appears beside the SUV and starts moving toward the house. The homeowner ducks behind the wall, draws a handgun, and leans out from cover to assess the intruder. The intruder keeps advancing, so the homeowner fires several defensive shots off camera from cover. The suspect goes down near the vehicle while the homeowner retreats further inside and calls police. Even with an alarm or loyal dogs, your first move should be distance, solid cover, and contacting authorities. Never chase intruders, protect your position, and let trained officers handle the confrontation. Masked teens rush a smoke shop counter, only to be driven back by the owner. In Las Vegas, 3 masked juveniles enter a smoke shop. One grabs the tip jar, while another moves toward the register and then jumps over the glass case. Fearing he's about to be overwhelmed, the owner grabs a sharp object from the counter and fights the intruder off, while the other teens run for the door. The suspect falls near the entrance, and the owner immediately stops, calls 911, and waits for police. Officers later arrest the juveniles, and the injured teen is taken to the hospital. Robberies can turn chaotic in seconds. Physical resistance carries huge risks. Whenever possible, focus on prevention, staying calm, and calling authorities as soon as it's safe to do so. A quiet liquor store suddenly turns into chaos when 2 masked men rush in and a customer drops to the floor, trying to crawl away as a gun is raised over her. The robbers force the worker and customer to comply, while one suspect moves behind the counter, aiming the weapon and demanding the day's takings from the register. As the gunman shifts his focus toward the customer, the worker sees a split-second opening, lunges forward, and wrestles with him in a close-quarters struggle. The fight drives the armed robber backward toward the exit. Both suspects break free, retreat to a waiting vehicle, and speed away, while the worker and customer make it to safety and contact police. Confronting an armed attacker is extremely risky. Whenever possible, prioritize staying low, using cover and escaping, and rely on layered security measures like cameras, controlled entry, and quick calls to authorities instead of direct physical resistance. A masked robber raises a gun. Then a customer behind him moves first. Early morning at an Arizona gas station, 3 suspects walk in. One points a handgun toward the cashier as a Marine Corps veteran stands nearby. The moment the muzzle drifts past him, the veteran lunges, grabs the gun hand, and slams the suspect against the counter while the other 2 run. He wrenches the weapon away and holds the suspect on the floor until deputies arrive. Reports say no injuries were recorded, and the juvenile is taken into custody. Robberies unfold in seconds, and intervening is extremely risky. Whenever possible, create distance, stay low, and call law enforcement instead of trying to disarm an attacker. A gun is inches from his face, but the man in the hat is the one who moves. Inside a butcher shop in Nuevo Leon, a hooded robber points a handgun toward the cashier and the owner in the cowboy hat, demanding cash. When the robber briefly turns toward a female customer behind him, the owner seizes the moment, lunges forward, and clamps onto the gun arm. He drives the robber backward in a tight clinch, knocks the weapon away, and wrestles him to the ground as other employees rush in. The suspect is held until police arrive and is later charged with attempted robbery. Disarming an armed robber is extremely risky and should never be attempted unless there is no safer option. In most situations, maintaining distance, staying low, and calling law enforcement when it's safe is the best way to survive. A masked robber leaps the counter with a shotgun, but someone outside is watching. Evening at a supermarket in Superia, Trinidad and Tobago. Two armed men rush in. One climbs the counter for cash, while customers back away, and a security guard waits near the entrance. As the robbers run for the door, the guard draws his firearm, fires, and the gunman near the entrance drops the weapon and goes down. Police arrive moments later, recover the shotgun, detain the second suspect, and the injured robber is taken to the hospital under guard. Gunfights are chaotic and unpredictable. If a robbery erupts, don't try to be the hero. Get low, move to cover if you safely can, and call law enforcement once you're out of danger. Three masked intruders climb a warehouse stairway, kicking at a locked door. Then a security guard suddenly appears in a window below. Nighttime in a rural Brazilian warehouse complex. A trio of robbers arrives on foot, faces covered, and heads for a metal spiral staircase leading up to a side entrance. As one robber kicks at the door, the guard leans out of a nearby window with a handgun and fires several rounds toward the stairway. The lead intruder is struck and collapses, while the others turn to run. The surviving suspects flee across the yard. One can be seen limping as they disappear into the dark. Reports say the injured robber received medical treatment, and police later opened an investigation into the attempted break-in. Armed break-ins can trigger armed responses, and bullets don't care who was right. When violence erupts around a business, the safest move for workers and bystanders is to get behind solid cover, create distance, and let trained law enforcement handle the confrontation. Three teenagers rush into a gas station garage. Seconds later, an older man at the doorway opens fire. Nighttime at a gas station in Taguatinga, Brazil. A stolen car pulls up. Several teens jump out and move toward two men in a small service bay, pointing what appear to be handguns during a robbery attempt. As the suspects crowd the doorway, one man, reported as a retired police officer, steps back, draws his firearm, and quickly fires several shots toward the group. The teens scramble to escape. The suspects retreat toward the car and scatter. Later, police report that one of them does not survive, and the other two are located after seeking medical help and taken into custody. Police recover the stolen vehicle and link the group to other robberies. Armed confrontations escalate in an instant and can turn deadly for everyone involved. Real or not, pointing any weapon at someone can trigger a lethal response. In a robbery, the safest option is usually to avoid resistance, create distance if possible, and contact law enforcement rather than engaging in a shootout. Don't forget to share what you learned today in the comments. Your insight could save a life. Take care.